So what's the political fallout from the budget deal? What does it mean for Speaker McCarthy? And will anyone even remember this battle in 2024 as we now speed toward a fiscal cliff? Joining us now with more, Fox News contributor, we welcome in studio Kellyanne Conway, along with the host of the Getting Hammered podcast, Outkick writer Mary Catherine Ham is with us. All right, let's get your take on this. Look, I felt the Republicans had a much stronger hand than they played. I thought they passed the bill. They've increased the debt ceiling. It saved $4.8 trillion. Now we're saving $2.1. Kevin is right. It's the most we've ever saved, but we never had a debt at $31 trillion either. I wish they never gave in, especially on the issue of IRS agents. And a couple of other provisions I would have liked to see remain.
Sure, there are many reasons, Sean, to feel disappointed, but I think there are a couple of reasons to feel elated also. The Republicans didn't use the excuse that we only have the House, we don't have the votes, we have a tight majority, we can't do this. That's the old Washington establishment excuse. But instead, Speaker McCarthy, whose approval rating has gone up 15 points since he took that gavel, took this to the brink. And here are the results. We have $28 billion more in defense spending than we did a year ago. And at $886 billion for defense spending, that is the largest defense budget in U.S. history. That is the largest defense budget in the world right now, they claim. We're clawing back some of the billions in COVID, maybe not everything we want to, but I think it's a start. I think two things are happening here. Number one, the world's a dangerous place, and our men and women in uniform deserve to be deeply respected and generously resourced.
But Lindsay made a point about not keeping up with inflation.
Yeah, I understand. I'm looking at the
He's
numbers.
a hawk.
I get that.
We understand.
I do. I get that. And I think it's very easy to say what's missing. What I see in front of me is the best that we're going to get with Joe Biden in the White House, who's kind of absent from these negotiations right now. This augurs for why we need a Republican back in the White House to get a much better deal. The second thing I see, the second thing I see is that this country says the economy is the number one issue. We're drowning economically, looking for pockets of air. The government spends too much money. We've all been asked to rein in our own spending. This says to Americans that the left got nothing. Don't forget, the Democrats, who have a majority in the Senate, Sean, and control the White House, they came to the table, and they're leaving the table empty-handed. They didn't get the squad, didn't get their new tax hike. Regulation is not there. The Leviathan administrative state that got expanded through the omnibus in 2022 when Pelosi was still Speaker is gone. And Hakeem Jeffries he's going to have to capitulate and pass Kevin McCarthy's bill. Best we can get with an absent-minded Biden in the White House, and I think we take the partial win and we get some fiscal sanity in Washington.
All right, by the way, the bill has just passed in the House. With this Fox News alert, the House now has the votes to pass the debt ceiling bill. That means it'll go to the U.S. Senate, and we assume that'll pass there. Here with more, our own Chad program. Chad, we've been looking at Dems and Republicans. We have 135 Republicans for, 57 against, which was higher than the earlier vote today, and Democrats 118 for, 30 against. So obviously 57 is a pretty big loss of Republicans for Kevin McCarthy.
And this is why Republicans, even though they're in the majority, we're going to have to rely on Democrats to get this across the finish line. We always knew that this was going to be a bipartisan cocktail of Democratic and Republican votes here. The fact that they are getting, well into the 200s, I had reported earlier in the week that they thought they might be able to get somewhere in the neighborhood of 270, 280. When I look at how many votes are still outstanding here, 72 votes, this could approach 300 yeas despite all the consternation on both sides of the aisle against this bill. Now, keep in mind that the vote is still open. They don't call it an official vote. They don't close the vote until you see that gavel come down. That's when you have the final total. The magic number tonight was 218. There are 435 members of the House of Representatives. We're down at least one today because Democratic Representative Angie Craig injured her leg and had to have surgery, so she's out. But you still need 218 with 434 total members, if that's how many members cast their ballots tonight. But they are way above that threshold right now. This will then go to the Senate as early as tonight, but we do not expect any resolution there until Friday or maybe over the weekend, Sean.
270, well, actually 280 yay, 101 no. Chad, we really appreciate it as always. By the way, Catherine, let's get your take on this.
Yeah, I mean, I think the issue for everyone is that compromise doesn't feel great, especially if you're an ideological person, especially if you really want to get the budget under control and it's so wildly inflated from the COVID years and the Biden years at this point, right? Doesn't feel good. The reality is we're fighting on Speaker McCarthy's turf, but the turf is not good. And I always sort of grade things in Washington on a scale of terribleness to possible terribleness, and this is like quite a bit less terrible than I thought we might be with the clean debt ceiling passing, which is what I was afraid we might get with Democrats just, bang zoom to the moon, right? I live in a realist household. My newest baby just got his Social Security card. I took it to his crib and I said, look, honey, here's your first broken promise. Like, we have to deal with the reality
By the way, Mary
of
Catherine,
Washington while we're doing this.
first of all, congrats on the baby, by the way.
Thank you.
Your first live from Washington. Congratulations. Let's pop some hot, warm milky, with Joe Biden. By the way, it's great to have you back. Let's get your take on it. The latest number we have is, 290 to 108, so passed by a significant margin.
It did. And I think there's something in there for both sides, but I think there's mostly stuff there for the Republicans in the House because Speaker McCarthy really shepherded this. Joe Biden is absent from the negotiations. It tells you all you need to know. And look, I sympathize with many of the Freedom Caucus members and the others, the 57 or so Republicans who want more. We all want more. Look at this as a step in the right direction from what has been a completely financially irresponsible, unaccountable federal government, particularly in the altar of COVID. That's been going on for over 3 years now, Sean.
Look, we've done this together for years. You got 68 Republicans went against this bill. That's a large number. Now, whether or not there was early talk when the bill first came out and the deal was announced, there was talk about a motion to vacate. Any one Republican member could start that against Kevin McCarthy.
Right.
Is that something he should worry about?
Well, not right now. It passed. But I think he's always worried about that. I think that's why.
After the passing, they might say, why didn't you negotiate a harder bill?
They may do that. I think he negotiated a decent bill given the cards that he's able to play. Also, when you look at the 111 or so, Sean, that are voting against, in addition to the 57 or so Republicans, the rest are Democrats. Who are they? They're the radical liberal leftists in the party who didn't get a darn thing they wanted. They didn't get the new tax cut, new regulations. They didn't get an expansion of the administrative state. They wanted to gut defense spending behind the scenes to non-discretionary levels. That is a disgrace. And I want our men and women in uniform and everybody, all of us who love them and appreciate them so much, to know right after Memorial Day that it is the Republicans in the House who made sure that you got $886 billion for our men and women in military. That matters.
All right. Mary Catherine, 300 yes, 110 no. Kevin lost 68 Republicans, has 142 on his side. What are the political implications for him, possibly?
Well, look, obviously there are going to be people who are upset about this after the fact. But you know who does like compromise, even when it doesn't feel good to me, is a lot of American voters. And I think Kellyanne noted his approval ratings going up. I think there may be some of that at work here because people like to see something that is functioning, and this feels like it's basically functioning. I also want to give a shout out to Thomas Massey's part of this that says that we might actually go back to regular order in doing budgets, which I think, even though it feels like procedural and not super sexy, we do need to get back to regular order when it comes to budgeting, and I think it could be a good sell to voters and a step toward fiscal sanity, which is what ultimately we want.
Yeah. All right. So, by the way, isn't this the dumbest system? It's like soccer. I can never understand. The clock ends and the game just keeps going on until they decide, oh, let's just, we'll call
like
the game
kid
now.
Soccer.
And
it's actually
maybe let
kid
the other
soccer
team...
where they all run near the ball and the clock.
That's why I don't like soccer. I like football, real football.
Go Eagles.
All right. So, 312. I still think that on a couple of hands, why are you more optimistic about this than me? And I'm not being critical of Kevin McCarthy. I just thought his hand was stronger. The other mistake I would argue that he made, and I know because I spoke to a lot of members as this was all unfolding, and there was palpable, real anger by many of them. Why didn't he keep them in the loop as he was negotiating with the White House and say, guys, this is what they're proposing. I want to get your feedback before I agree to anything, knowing that he has one member can, move with a motion to vacate, and knowing that conservatives might not like some of these concessions?
That I don't know. I know he had his deputies out there. Mr. McHenry, Mr. Graves have gotten a lot of credit, deservedly so, for filling in the
These
breach.
guys were saying
But
they
let me
weren't
say
told a
this.
thing.
Well, they should be told. I like a party, everybody says, oh, the Democrats have unity. No, they don't. They have unanimity. They all vote exactly the same. We need unity. That's different than unanimity. But unity in a party with growing pains, Sean, sometimes means that we don't all get what we want. I don't want anyone to compromise their principles on the altar of unity. But let me say this. You asked why I'm optimistic. I am optimistic, not apologetic. Yeah. This is nothing like any of us would have wanted if we were in charge of the whole process. But I'm optimistic because this country is so depressed economically. 18% of Americans in a poll today said that the economy is going well. This is Biden's economy. I want to move on from this fight and let everybody focus on the man-made crisis that is the Biden-Harris, Fetterman-Pelosi economy.
The argument that I would...
And I don't want us to be blamed for defaulting on the debt that was going to come.
Joe Biden would have been responsible for the default. Joe Biden said he wouldn't negotiate. Joe Biden met, 125, 30 days ago and disappeared for 97 straight days. And he was betting on the fact that the Republicans would never come together and pass a bill. It was go back to 2023 spending levels. It limited baseline budgeting to increases of 1%. It had the drilling and gas provisions that Joe Manchin and conservatives wanted. It had a lot of good things in there, and it defunded the IRS. I think on those issues, I think he lost a lot of people in terms of support. Look, I'm not saying it's an easy job. I would not want that job. You have to be out of your mind to want that job. However, I thought their hand was stronger. You've been great. Thank you. Mary Catherine, by the way, congrats on the baby.
Yes.
It's great to have you back in the loop. We love having you.
Nice to see you guys.